What's up? It's Matt. We're back with episode 105. Mr. David Jones. If you don't know who he is, shame on you. You're about to find out. The guy's a genius. Can't wait to talk about restaurant, hospitality, customer service, and all that good stuff. David, welcome.
Oh, thank you, Matt. Hey, I want to start out by number one, thanking you. But number two, I love your energy, your work ethic. Man, it's contagious. It's really fantastic. So it's an honor to be here.
I appreciate it. That's fueled by a lot of coffee and some Red Bull. So I guess tell the audience who you are, and then I'll get into how I found you, how I know who you are, and we'll talk some business.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So I'm the founder of the Excellence Advisory. We do coaching, consulting, teaching, public speaking about performance excellence. It's all about achieving your full potential. One of the greatest wastes, and it's a shame because you see it everywhere, but it's organizations or individuals not living up to their full potential. So our goal is to help others do that. My background, actually, interestingly enough, is in engineering. I spent 25 years in corporate America as an engineer. And I found my center of gravity was around performance excellence, achieving that full potential. And it was through some contacts I made there that I was recruited 2011, 2012 to teach and consult at PALS Business Excellence Institute. And I hope we get a chance to talk a little bit more about PALS. And that was like a PhD in performance excellence, customer service, taking care of your employees. PALS is one of the best run companies in America, not just restaurants, companies of any type. And to get to teach their story, share their methods was just a real blessing. And so today I'm carrying on that tradition and adding into that. So all the examples aren't just PALS. There's a lot going on in the world that's good. And we help organizations find it and implement it.
And I tell you what, it's amazing what we don't tap into. And I read something recently. It's like, the biggest missed opportunity is what all of us have the ability to do. My son, who's 17 years old, who was just up here at our office, drove up, he got out of school, drove up here to talk to me. And we had a conversation about his lacrosse game last night and a couple things. He's a student, watches YouTube videos, gets out I'll hear a ding, ding on the side of the house. It's him out there with a lacrosse ball bouncing it. He just started playing like a month ago. And he's starting for the varsity team as a junior and doing well, but he's got a lot of things he needs to work on. And it's helping him understand, like, dude, you never know what your potential is until you try. And I think that's a lot of times it comes down to having direction, having SOPs, having advice, having people showing you the path.
Yeah, absolutely. And without systems and processes, and this in the restaurant world, especially without systems and processes, you can't scale. And a lot of owners can't even take a vacation. They can't get away because they got to be there to keep it running.
Which is terrible. And I got that in here later on because that's one thing I'm fortunate of. Back in kind of on accident, but about 2015, 16, a friend of mine called me up and it was like it was meant to be, but he's talking to me and he said, hey, let me tell about your SOPs. I'm like, SOP, what the hell's an SOP? He's like, a standard operating procedure. I'm like, oh, you mean like in my mind, the directions of how and why we do what we do. And he's like, yeah. He's like, what do you have? I was like, I guess really none. He's like, okay. And like at that point, my key person, even now, my key person's a lady named Ashley, who's been with me for 11 years, I want to say. And he said, what if she quits tomorrow? Like, I don't know. Like, I guess he's like, well, you want to be able to hand over what she does to somebody that without a hiccup. And no shit. Like I hang up the phone and I have a missed call from Ashley. I'm like, oh my God. She's quitting. And I called her back. I'm like, what's up? And she's like, oh, I had a question. It was nothing big. And so at that point, I'm like, okay, we're going to document because that's a key element. And flash forward, it was great. The Christmas of 2017, I went on a 10-day ski trip to Canada, came back for 3 days, grabbed my wife and kids, went to Denver for 3 more days of skiing, went to Hawaii for 9 days, came back for a day, went to Vegas for 3 days.
Wow.
With one of my employees, with Ashley. I was literally probably maybe put in, if you counted my hours, 2 days of work in that 30 days. Didn't lose a client, didn't have any hiccups because I've removed myself from the business as the operator. I'm not an employee anymore. I'm a visionary. And so, SOPs and systems are what helps do that. We work with independent restaurant owners who are notoriously bad about getting out of the way.
Yeah. And then the other element of all that is culture, which, also is establishing that culture of, hey, we're going to be the best we can possibly be. We're not going to accept anything less. We're only going to hire the best. We're going to train. We're going to do all those things. And it's embedded in the culture. And that's what you experienced there was your culture, and your processes carried things on when you were gone. You didn't have to worry a thing about it. You could shush on the slopes all you wanted.
Yep, you know it. So I found you. I like to give credit where credit's due. A lot of the people I find, the experts like yourself, are through podcasts or books. And, Restauranttopia, which ironically, I was in Cleveland last Thursday filming. We did 3 episodes of Restauranttopia with me and with a couple of the guys from the team there. And that's how I found you. So the episode's awesome. If you want to check it out, it's episode 82, how to hold restaurant staff accountable, with yours truly, David Jones. So David, I got some notes from there. If you don't mind me digging in and asking you a couple questions.
Sure. Yeah, shoot.
So number one, when one of our clients, Andrew with Down to Face Entertainment with Bucky, saw that you were going to be on, he was texting me some stuff, and it blew me away. Cause like you said, your tie into the restaurant space was with Pals, and they're legendary in that part of the country. But he sent me a stat, which blew me away, which obviously ties back to that training, the excellence training. Every 3,600 customers, there's one mistake at Pals.
Yeah, one complaint in every
One complaint.
Mm-hmm.
That's ludicrous.
Oh, yeah, it's off the charts. And really what makes that even more ludicrous is they're going 4 times faster than their competition. They're, the global competitors, all those names. They're going 4 times faster, and maybe have 1/100th or 1/200th of the complaint rate.
It's unbelievable. Like, I remember one time, I won't mention the chain, but me and my wife are in a fast food restaurant going through a drive-through, and it's comical. My wife, literally, if we go anywhere, because I get threatened, do not pull away from the window until you look at my stuff, because she's the one that it always gets messed up, like literally every time. Mine will be perfect, and we pull away and it's hers, and she's like, I told you to leave. But we're at one of these restaurants, and she's like upset over the fact that something was wrong in the drive-thru. I said, Christy, like, in this particular instance, it's 2 people that are waiting on you, a 16-year-old who might not give a crap, and then a 75-year-old who's probably doesn't give a crap for the other reasons. But that's a cop-out, because at the end of the day, if the right things are in place and the right things are done to hire those people and train them, they will care, right?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My wife and I had a similar experience. We were at one of those big box retailers. We were outside of the Pals service area, and the young lady, who was nice and pleasant, she was all by herself at the counter, couldn't enter a grilled chicken sandwich. Her finger was just like a helicopter over the POS, right? Just looking like her finger had eyes, right? She's just trying to find that. She couldn't. So she turns around and she asks for help. And, the assistant manager, you've seen this, comes up, all gruff and grumbly. And why can't you do this? And bangs in the order and gives her a mean stare and hauls off. So, me doing what I do, I just sort of leaned in a little bit, said, how long have you been working here? And she said, oh, today's my first day. So they don't train her.
Yep.
They put her 3 feet in front of the customer and expect her to stay. No wonder the turnover is so huge there. So it all goes back to leadership, and what they do or don't do to take care of their employees, to set them up for success.
Yeah. And I catch myself, I'm 45. I was unfortunate to be a leader of our family business. Me and my dad and brother created it when I was 28. No clue what the hell I was doing. We actually had a consultant come in 3 years later, analyze our employees. He's like, hey, all these people who have been fired, I found a common trend. And I'm like, I know what it is. He's like, what? He's like, you hired them. I'm like, yeah. He's like, you're not allowed to hire people anymore. You're a terrible hire. But, I was unfortunate that I was, in a place in life where I wasn't trained for it. And then even now, I catch myself. We have a meeting every morning at 8:00 with with 9 of my employees with our sales division. And I catch myself in the meeting giving them crap for stuff, or maybe instructing them on things. And in my back of my mind, I'm like, wonder if I've got a process down for that. I wonder if I actually showed them that. And I go, well, you know what? And about half of them I end up going, hey guys, sorry, that's my fault. So it's important. And I was at a Raising Cane's yesterday up here near my office on the way to my son's lacrosse game. I had to swing by, get some food beforehand. And I walked in and you could tell the young lady was really new. But guess who was flanking her with a big old smile? The manager right behind her. She walked up and she's like, "Hey, what can I help you with?" I'm like, "I'd like the 4-piece, the 4-box, I think they cost you." "Okay, cool." And she's looking, she's like, "Yeah, you want to hit that?" She walked her through it. It was seamless. She never left her side. And I'm like, yeah, like you said, I've been to other restaurants where you walk up and it's like that person's trial by fire. I was a defensive back in college. I couldn't have imagined like being a lineman and then going, "Hey, by the way, you're going to go be a defensive back now." And then getting back there in a game and having somebody throw balls at me. I'm like, "What the hell am I doing?"
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yep. So it goes back to leadership.
Yeah. So you said something on here that got my attention. I got some notes down here. It's why employees won't do that. There's a lot of, or my employees won't do that. There's a lot of people that say, because we do some training with regards to in-store, like the question that I hate the most. And my goal is to rid independent restaurants of this one question. When you walk into a restaurant, how are you doing? Because when the person that asks it doesn't actually give a shit how I'm doing, and the person that answers it doesn't really care how you're doing, but it's a pleasantry. I'm trying to teach them engagement. Hey, how to get them to engage differently. And I hear from people, "Oh, my employees won't do that." And I'm like, I don't think that's anywhere close. And you made a comment. You said their mindset is off because they're viewing accountability as punishment.
Yep. Yeah. So if you want your guests to feel welcomed, then you need to teach your people how to welcome them. And it doesn't have to be a script.
Yep.
They can use their own words,
yep.
but they have to provide a genuine welcome. And you can coach them through what a genuine welcome looks like: eye contact, smile, warm and friendly, open posture, all of that. You can coach them. When they don't do it, then you have to coach them again and coach them again and coach them again. The reason is you want the best for them. If you really care for them, it's like your kids, right? You make your kids eat their vegetables because that's what's good for them. You're not trying to punish them.
Yeah.
Right? Same with your employees. You want them to perform at a high level because they're capable of that. If you don't ask for their full capabilities, you're actually disrespecting them.
Yeah.
You're letting them get by with less than they can offer. So they're never going to develop their full person, their full personality. And a lot of restaurant jobs, especially if you're in high school or college, that's a stepping stone. This is very early in their careers. You have an obligation really to train them, teach them how to be good at what they do, how to be a good employee. So you have to hold them accountable. And you do it in a way that you build them up. You don't tear them down.
You said something there that got me thinking, because I'm not a vegetable guy. And growing up, it was like, I remember sitting at the table one time in our dining room and like, "You're not leaving until you eat your vegetables." And I sat there for like, I bet 3 hours. And finally, I'm like, "Jesus, you're done." And it was at that point, I never ate vegetables, and I never really did. I still don't eat a lot of them now, but it's kind of like, I have a sports car that takes 93, period.
Mm-hmm.
It has to have 93 or higher. I don't put 89 because the manufacturer says, here's the negative effect that's going to happen when you put that in there. And it's the same way that if we would, raise our kids or raise people with, here's why vegetables. Yeah, you can have Pop-Tarts occasionally, you can have pizza, you can have this, but with, you got to have these certain levels of everything so that when you're 65, you don't have diabetes and heart disease and cancer, and you're not 400 pounds.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it's the same way with business that you said. I have that quote written down that if you allow somebody to give less than their best, you're disrespecting them. And that's huge, because a lot of us have a lot more ability than we realize. Have you seen the video of the young man? It's from a movie where it's a football movie where the kid's crawling on the field.
Yep.
And it's true. Like, you don't know what you're capable of until you actually get pushed to it. And then all of us are capable of doing 10 times more than we probably ever thought of.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And so if you design your process, you write down your SOPs, you record those. So now we have a standard process to follow. If that works at the 100% level, and you have the tools and equipment, and you do the maintenance on that shake machine and all of that, then you're setting them up for success. And at Pals, I can tell you another statistic is their turnover is anywhere from a third to a half of what the competition is. So their employees are staying twice as long
because because they're trained better and they don't feel stupid as often, I would imagine. Like for me, what I've
Absolutely.
seen is when you give somebody something and they don't know how to correctly do it and then they fail, they feel dumb. It's like, oh, the whole thing, there's no such question as a dumb question. Well, when people feel like that, they get defeated. When they get defeated, I'm not good at this. And we're all capable of being good at anything, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and if you're designing your SOPs, you're going to design it to the level of the person that's going to be executing it.
Yeah.
So, taking a fast food order and entering it into POS is not brain surgery. So we don't need 6 years of college. We're going to teach it to the person that's going to do it. If it was brain surgery, then we would teach a different way.
Yeah.
We would get to that level.
So you also, the last part I got for you said, you can't always be there. And I think this is something that is hard as an entrepreneur. When I was in our boat dealership, that was my worst thing. I didn't know what the hell that was. I was on the forklift some days. I was doing the accounting. I remember one time our banker walked in. We just got done with a boat show, and I had no lie, $470,000 in cash and checks on my desk.
Wow.
And he walked in. He's like, "What is all this?" Because there's just cash stacked. There's checks. I said, "This is from the past weekend. How much is that?" It's like almost $500,000. Like, why is this on your desk and not in the bank? I'm like, well, because, I got to get it entered in the system, all this. He's like, man, I've been telling you, you guys are doing 10 million a year in sales at this point. We end up getting almost 15.4.
Wow.
Hire an accountant. You're the owner of the company. You shouldn't be on the forklift one day, pressure washing the sidewalk one day, entering $500,000 in checks. And a lot of business, especially restaurants, have a hard time removing themselves and letting people actually do what they're trained. And you had mentioned 3 things in there. If you could mention those, what allows people to step away from that?
Well, if they don't step away, if they don't teach others, then they're going to be a slave to the business. I call it a treadmill of their own making. They have to be there, but they're not making any progress. They're not getting anywhere. So they have to understand the business clearly and be able to communicate well to others and hold them accountable to that.
Yeah, that was the 3 things you said. Number 1, you got to have documented SOPs, which you're saying. You got to have things in place. You've got to have a system of a process of accountability. Talk about that a little, because that's one thing for me that I struggle with, is that as a parent, 17 and a 19-year-old, I mean, at the end of the day, it's no different than an employee that you got to hold them accountable for something. What are some of the things you can do to do that from a standpoint of, is it just a matter of saying, hey, this is what you do and this is what happens when it doesn't happen, and go from there?
Yeah, that's part of it. It really starts with the documentation and the training, because you can't hold them accountable. You could, but it's not fair to hold them accountable to something that they're not aware of.
Yeah.
So you have to teach them, show them up front, make sure that they understand it. And then you actually ask them when you see something that's off standard or they didn't quite perform well, you ask them, now, did that meet our standard? Is that the way we're supposed to do it? And let them explain. Because one thing you might learn is that you didn't teach it very well. They understood it a different way. So you don't want to go charging in there like it's all on them. In fact, the way we coach is your first assumption needs to be it's something that you did as the leader that led them to think that that was the right thing to do. So you take all that blame off the table and put it on yourself until you find out otherwise, that no, they actually knew they weren't doing it right. They just tried to, cut a corner or whatever. And then you walk them through the process. If they really didn't know how to do it, you walk them through the process. Then you have them demonstrate to you that they know how to do it. And there's 4 elements behind that. Okay. If in any coaching situation, you want to be sincere, specific, immediate, and personal. And that's a pattern that you can follow. Because insincerity, if you're not sincere about your feedback, then that's easily detected and they won't accept it too well. You need to be specific so they know exactly what it is. So if I said, Matt, good job on that last burger, is that as helpful as good job on the way you mounded the lettuce on that last burger,
Yeah.
right? Both helpful, but one a lot more helpful. So
Yes.
very specific. Immediate means as quickly as possible, because in the restaurant world, if we wait till the end of the shift, oh, they're gone, I'm tied up, I'm doing the book, whatever. I didn't get a chance to talk to them. Now, the next day, they're not on shift. Another third day, I've forgotten, they've forgotten. We've missed the opportunity to fix it. So the more immediate, the better. Plus, it's fresh in their mind, so it's going to take better. And then personal. So instead of saying, hey, Matt, didn't the shift do a great job today? It's like, Matt, you did a great job leading the shift today. So you know exactly what you did right, what you did well, and what needs to go on, or what you didn't do right and well, and what needs to be fixed. So sincere, specific, immediate, and personal.
And of those four, the one that sticks out to me is immediate, because I think we've all had it where you have a meeting with somebody and they're like, hey, you've done so much the last month that we're not happy about. Okay, what? Well, I can't really recall. There's been a lot of instances where, okay, well, can you lay them out? Well, no, not really. I had that. We had a former client of ours that we worked with, and thank goodness we quit work with them because they were not a good client for how they treated us. But I'll never forget this one general manager of the one restaurant. Every time I talk to him, he's like, oh my gosh, there's so many things we got to fix that have happened the last month. Okay, well, what do you got? Well, I don't have anything specific. And I'm like, how the hell can I fix it? Like you're telling me my employees, like, she misspelled something in a post. Which post? Because I'm looking through, I don't see anything in these 50 posts. Well, it must have been one from 2 months ago. And I'm like, that it just creates a lot of animosity, and it eliminates you being able to actually address what the problem is.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You lose your credibility when you operate that way.
Yep. Well, I appreciate having you on today. In the notes, there's a link to this podcast because I loved it. I thought you crushed it, and I thought those guys did a great job of carrying on the conversation. Make sure you check that out, and then also they can check you out at the excellenceadvisory.com. Correct?
That is correct. Yeah, or catch up with me on LinkedIn. That's where I spend my social media time.
Okay.
But don't just connect. Send me a message that said, hey, I saw you on America's Best Restaurant University podcast, the restaurant expert. And then I'll know where we met each other from.
Yeah, that's key. I hate when I get connections like, hey, I want to connect with you. Why? Well, I don't know. I just hit a button. Well, last thing on here, two things real quick. You mentioned there's a classic little restaurant that's by the Bristol Motor Speedway that because I was telling you a story how when I was down in that area and near you and pulled up on like, where are we at? We're lost. I looked up and I'm like, oh, there's a kind of a big bleachers here. What's the restaurant that's a must-have down there?
It's Ridgewood Barbecue.
Ridge. I'm going to write that down because my team travels a lot. You can't go wrong with barbecue, especially in Tennessee.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic. Now, it's a different experience than you would see at Pal's.
Yeah.
But it's back in a holler.
Yeah.
It's a wide spot in the road, and it's some of the best barbecue and beans you'll find anywhere. And anybody that comes to this area goes to Ridgewood. The governor goes there. All the top race drivers go there. Somebody wrote them up in best backwoods barbecue restaurants. They've been on Good Morning America. It's all good stuff.
Okay, well, check it out. Now, last thing, how can we help you? Who should reach out to you for help? What restaurants do you work with? What small businesses? Because I'm sure everybody can use excellence, right?
Yeah, in fact, I do work with organizations outside of restaurants, government organizations, small businesses. My thrust is with leaders of either a group within an organization or the owner of the business.
Okay.
To help them max out their potential.
Well, I love it. Well, I appreciate having you on today. Anything else you want to close with, or anywhere else they check you out, or just LinkedIn and the excellenceadvisory.com?
Yeah, that's it, man. Well, cool. I appreciate it, Matt.
Thanks for being on. I can't wait when I'm down in town, because I'm actually going to Knoxville, I think, in the next couple of weeks. So when I'm down there, I'm gonna have to hit you up, and I'm definitely hitting that barbecue joint. Maybe we can grab a sandwich together.
That'd be awesome.
Hey, thank you, sir.
All right.
Bye.